Welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast, Season 5, Episode 17, if our count is correct.
Yeah, we should be.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure it's correct.
Every time you say that, I'm like, man, I don't know, because if we skip one, I get thrown off on the number system, and it doesn't take much to throw me off,
Well, I'm only joking about it because it would be easy to get off count since we didn't record anything last week.
Mm,
Whoopsie.
Yeah.
I'll explain why here in a bit, I suppose, since people are probably wondering. Hello, Connor. Welcome. First comment in from Connor on Facebook. Hello, Scott. I'm glad you missed us. It's good to be missed. There's those times as laying on my sick bed, I was wondering, does anybody really miss us, miss the podcast?
Well, we missed you, Riley, if that makes you feel better. Scotty, we missed you too.
I didn't get any emails from anybody wondering what happened, so there's that.
Oh, man.
Hey, folks, today is the legislative updates episode. We got to catch you up and get you back up to speed on things legislatively across the country. There's a lot going on. There's probably stuff that we don't even have time to talk about today. In fact, I know there is. So just know that if we don't talk about your favorite pet legislative news story, I apologize. But we're trying to cover as much as we can here today. Got stories out of Colorado and Washington, Alabama, Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia, Georgia, and Nebraska. See, there's a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Cool thing is a lot of those are similar related things, which is cool. But there's a couple things that are less cool. So we'll get to those. Anyway, yeah, so I think we'll go ahead and get started now with the recorded portion of the audio part of the show. In case this is your first time joining with us, the way this rolls, we record our podcast live. So when I say that we're going to start, that's when we actually take the recorded audio and it gets published up to the podcast feed on your favorite podcast players, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Audible, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, all the big podcast playing devices or apps, I guess. You can find the Concealed Carry podcast. So if you don't, or if you miss live recordings of the show, then that's where you can catch up with it. Or you can obviously catch this on Facebook or YouTube after the fact. But it's pretty easy to be subscribed to the podcast in one of your favorite podcast apps and get notified when new episodes are released and so forth. So, which, by the way, they're typically published the week following the actual recording of them. Let's get started then in 3, 2, 1. This is the Concealed Carry Podcast, Season 5, Episode 17. And welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast, part of the concealedcarry.com network, brought to you by Excess Sites. Today is Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022, as of the recording of this episode. And I am your host, Riley Bowman. I'm joined today by our producer, Matthew Maruster.
What's up, man?
Hey, dude.
Glad you're feeling better. Glad to have you back amongst
Yes.
the living.
So for those, since you're throwing it out there already, Matthew, geez, gotta get right into the personal business. We missed the show last week. We didn't record any episodes last week because I came down sick and just did not feel well enough to get in front of all of you on the interwebs and record a podcast or talk for any length of time. And unfortunately, that stuck with me a little bit longer than I would have liked. I'm even now not 100%, but feeling a lot better than I was a few days ago. That's for sure. So glad to be back. Glad to do the podcast today with you all. Today is a legislative news updates episode. So we are covering stories from around the nation, bringing to you the latest updates on legislative matters, laws that are being talked about, being passed, laws that are being passed, laws that have been passed in various states, or things on a national level too. Although I don't know that we have so much any national news today, which is fortunate. We don't have anything going on presently in the U.S. House or Senate that's concerning at this current time. Or there are some things going on with the ATF is typical that makes us concerned, obviously. But that's there's nothing new to talk about there. Today we're here to talk about some important news. We got a story out of Washington State, which is a unfortunate update. We talked about it being a possibility that they would pass not one but 3 laws last month, and they did in fact pass those laws. We'll talk about what those are here in a moment. Some stuff out of Colorado, but we have a bunch of good news actually coming out of a bunch of states, including Alabama, Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia, Georgia, and Nebraska. Pretty cool. A whole string of them. A lot of them passing or talking about passing the same type of law, which is pretty cool to see. But first, today's episode is sponsored by CCW Safe. CCW Safe is our preferred partner for concealed carry self-defense related coverage, legal coverage. What this means is if you're a member of CCW Safe and you're involved in some kind of self-defense event, and actually a gun doesn't have to be the tool that is used, although it is often the one that might be used. CCW Safe is a team backed with experience. Everyone on their emergency response team, the guys that actually are going to be there for you, that answer the phones, that are going to talk to you and talk you through the aftermath of an event, they've been through similar events themselves. Many times it's in the context of them working as law enforcement officers. Many of them are past or retired law enforcement officers. They also have some amazing folks on their legal team with a breadth of experience. So I appreciate all that CCW Safe has to offer, but I most importantly appreciate their personal level of service that they bring to their clients that I think is unmatched in this industry, frankly. All right. We've talked about that before. I think that's something that's important to not overlook, whether it is with their ultimate plan, which I'm a member of, or one of their more affordable, but still hugely covering in terms of coverage, other plans like the Defender or Protector plans. So they even have plans that are designated specifically for law enforcement or military veterans, that is. Okay, so if you're a veteran, you actually want to give a look at the Protector plan. All right, so really it's a heck of a value. But even if you're not one of those categories, the Defender plan has a lot to offer as well, and is a great value in terms of what you get back in legal protection and coverage. Check out CCW Safe today and use our coupon code CC Podcast to save, I think it's 10%, maybe it's 15%. I always get confused, Matthew, because we have 2 discounts.
Yeah.
We have one for regular folks that listen to the podcast, and we have one for Guardian Nation members. That one I know is 20%, which is huge. So check it out. Go to ccwsafe.com. If you're a Guardian Nation member, don't forget to use your Guardian Nation member discount, which you'll find in the members dashboard area when you log in to Guardian Nation. And again, if you're just a podcast listener, hey, you're still going to save at least 10%, maybe more, by using CC Podcast. Also, CCW Safe is our presenting sponsor or title sponsor of the Guardian Conference later this year in Oklahoma City. And so today we're also talking about the Guardian Conference as a sponsor of this podcast, of this episode. We hope that you'll be there. We hope to see you there. I know that times are tough. I know inflation is on the rise. Gas is just crazy. You know, I drive a full-size rig with a 38-gallon tank, I think. I had to fill it up the other day. That hurt. So I feel your pain. But I hope that many of you will still choose to prioritize your training because it's important. with respect to understanding self-defense law, with understanding decision making in stressful events, with understanding physical combatives, hand-to-hand combatives, with understanding just how to use a gun, obviously, in the first place, how to draw properly, how to do it safely, how to put rounds on target under pressure. All those things are going to be possible to learn in a weekend of training with us at the 2022 Guardian Conference, because we're bringing in more than a dozen world-class instructors. You can see an updated list on the website now at guardianconference.com. I'm not going to list them all off, but there are a couple new ones added this week too, including female instructor Melody Lauer, which I know that you're going to hear more from and or about her here very soon, is my hope. But also, guys, go check out, we've got on there, again, Chuck Haggard, who was a wildly popular instructor from last year with a bunch of great classes. I just talked with Chuck the other day about his upcoming blocks that he's going to offer at the conference. And a lot of the same with respect to what he teaches, but it's good. It's important stuff. OC spray, managing unknown contacts, stuff like, situational awareness and keeping your distance, and how to manage those kinds of situations when you're out and about and you run into people you don't know and you don't know what their intents are. Learning how to use OC spray properly and being prepared for the aftermath of that, also hugely valuable. Okay. Low light classes with Chuck. Okay. And that's just one of our many amazing instructors. So check them out. Go to guardianconference.com. Sign up today. Early bird pricing still in effect, but that will not always be there. So don't delay. And again, I hope that you'll make the effort and the priority to be able to come and join with us, whether it's maybe you live in the area, or maybe you're just able to drive in or fly in. Travel is usually pretty reasonable in and out of Oklahoma City area. Also, what I remember from last year, their fuel prices there tend to trend a little bit lower than the national average too. So that's a help too. So anyway, guys, we hope to see you there again, guardianconference.com. Let's get into our news. We've got a bunch of things to cover. Matthew, I've been talking a while. Tell us about this case out of Connecticut, now going to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is, like you said, it's going to the, it's in its appeal to the Second Circuit Court. And what it entails is a concealed carrier who is in his vehicle. He pulls off or stops on his own to check his GPS on his phone or whatever. Police officer comes up, I guess looks suspicious. Maybe he's on the side of the road. He wants to see if he's okay, whatever. It doesn't really go in depth in any of that. But the officer makes contact with the driver. Driver gives the officer ID card and his concealed handgun license. Officer asks him if he has a handgun in the car. He says, yeah, I have a handgun. It's in the driver door pocket there. And from what the report says is that he was taken out of the vehicle forcefully, cuffed, put in the police car. The officer didn't attempt to see if the license was valid, and ends up searching the vehicle, the entire vehicle, seizes some property of his, some money, a hard drive, and other things. Just goes way overboard on search and seizure, Fourth Amendment issues. And so the driver ends up filing a lawsuit, wins, and now we're in a court of it's being appealed by the officer, obviously, and that's where we are. It's pretty crazy, in this, and I'm just gonna, I'll send it back to you, but I just want to give my 2 cents on this. This is why the duty to notify laws it's not just about, well, it's a courtesy to let the officer know. Yeah, sure. But there are officers that go overboard, that don't they hear gun, they see gun, and they don't know how to handle that situation. And unfortunately, it leads to situations like this. And so I'm not a big fan of duty to notify laws. I don't think that it makes officers any safer. But an officer who's relying on the suspect or the person they don't know to be safe, for their safety is not doing a good job, right? Like, and so if you want to give the officer in those states that don't have a duty to notify, a courtesy, hey, I have a firearm, great. If it's appropriate, great. But being compelled to say I have a firearm and then not knowing how the officer is going to react or their ability to take you out of the car and do all these things, to me, it's absent some articulable facts that the officer needs to take that person out of the car, or is in fear of officer safety issue. It's a non-issue. They're doing something that's completely illegal. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that. But I don't know. We'll see where this goes. I can't imagine that it would be that the officer would win an appeal, but who knows?
Yeah. I hate this case. I hate it. I mean, you just covered it very well. You talked about the overreach that very clearly occurred here. Reading some other, we don't have all these different news stories, linked to the show notes of today's episode. But I was, looking into this a little bit further, and according to the accounts, like, this guy's just stopped and he's trying to figure out his GPS, and the officer approaches, and the driver, his name is Sukane.
Common spelling.
I don't know how to, it's kind of an interesting last name. The officer's last name is even more difficult to pronounce. But I'm not even gonna try that one. He approaches, and the guy rolls down his window and he says hi, and the officer, like, apparently first words out of his mouth is your driver's license. Like, that's it. Yeah, like, it is on. It is down to business. Like, I don't care who you are, what you're doing. It's just, I'm going to ask you for your driver's license. We're going to treat this like a traffic stop. And as far as we know, the only thing that this officer could have cited him for, and he did in fact cite him for this, was parking in a driveway, which I assume means he parked in front of someone's driveway. I guess. I don't know. And yeah, like, but I decided to research also, Matthew, that Connecticut, as far as I know, according to the Concealed Carry Gun Tools app, is not a duty to notify state. That you must notify if asked, or when asked by an officer. In this case, this gentleman seems like he just volunteered his permit. So he's like, here's my driver's license, here's my permit. Now, I've done that, but I also say that I try to read and judge situations, the officer, like, and determine how I think that's going to go. Because, I would say, based on how this interaction started, I would not be volunteering that information, because this guy is looking for something. It also appears that where this man parked is in a high crime area that's also known for prostitution and drugs. So the fact that he's parked on the side of the street and it's late, and this is a dark and high crime area where these types of prostitution and drug transactions occur, okay, so it may have been out of place, and this officer may have been thinking this was, potential criminal of some kind here, but still, like, my goodness. So yeah, it's unfortunate to see that these things occur. And let's be real. I personally believe this, and I know that there's guys out there that would probably disagree, but if they do, I'm sorry. I think you're wrong. But having actually done some work somewhat in that line of work, and Matthew has as well, I personally believe that most cops are good human beings, or decent people that have a job to do and do the best that they can with the training that they're given. And I believe that there are a number of cops out there that are not so good, and bring dishonor, if you will, to the profession. And and just like any profession, like, I mean, you could be talking about attorneys here, right? Most attorneys, I think, are probably pretty decent attorneys and pretty decent folks, but there's a lot of scumbag attorneys out there too, you know, that give or bring a bad name to everybody else. And I think that's the way it is just about anything that we do. Same with doctors, nurses, right? Most of them are amazing people, but there's a few of them that absolutely suck. So let's be real. And it seems to me that this is a cop that was on a power trip and overstepped some serious bounds here, right? And the issue is this guy presented his permit for his, carrying his pistol, and that was justification alone, apparently, for this cop to arrest him. Is just, and the officer said that in light of the uncontested fact that the plaintiff, because keep in mind it's the victim here that sued for wrongful arrest, presented his pistol permit to the officer before or at the time he disclosed he was in possession of a pistol, in the absence of any other indication that the victim was otherwise violating the statute, no reasonable officer could believe probable cause was present. But the officer said that he believed, that the reason why he did this is because he didn't know for sure yet whether the permit was valid or not. And I'm just, it's kind of like we were talking about before, Matthew, previous episode about with respect to constitutional carry, which is going to be a big topic of today's episode as well when we get to some of these other state news stories. Like people want to fight against, and there's a great quote in one of these stories from one, I think is in the Georgia one, where one of the state reps or somebody was saying, we denied 5,200 permits, last year. And by golly, we kept over 5,000 people from carrying guns that shouldn't have been. And I'm like, how do you know you stopped them from carrying a gun? And number two, like, you proceed as though someone is lawful to carry that gun until you find out otherwise, because that's how rights enshrined in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, should be. So anyway, all right, moving on. I appreciate your analysis of this, Matthew. Good stuff there, buddy. Let's go to Colorado now. My current home state. I've lived here over a decade, and it's been sad to see how things have changed in that decade plus with respect to gun rights here in Colorado. Up for grabs right now is something called the Extreme Gun-Free Zone legislation. Oh, what the heck is that? Well, this comes down to voting. All right. And the official name of this bill is the Vote Without Fear Act. And the idea is that currently in certain voting stations in the state, you can carry openly. Right? That wouldn't be true in the case where like some voting locations might be held in schools or something, but for places where it's not already prohibited to carry a gun, or you're not in a jurisdiction, say like Denver, where open carry is prohibited, up till now, it's technically legal to openly carry while you go in and vote. But that's unacceptable because, that's scary, and that might, cause voter intimidation or something. So we got to have vote without fear. And so hence the name of this legislation. And the NRA ILA, as this article comes from, NRAILA.org, is spot on when they say the irony would be funny if it wasn't a serious and deeply held belief by anti-gun legislatures that I skipped a sentence there. It is the intention of this measure to prohibit you from exercising one of your constitutional rights while engaging in another. And that is the ironic part that the next sentence there that I was reading. Yeah, that is sadly ironic.
Yeah. Well,
so,
anyway. and I get it. Like I know this. I know that there's issues about voter intimidation, right? Like people standing out in front of, voting booths and things like that, and threatening people to vote one way or the other, or massing in trying to intimidate people from either not casting a vote, or I get that. But this isn't that. This is just there's no tie to any criminal action. There's no tie to any sort of like intimidation or anything. It's just merely doing something that is completely legal. But yet, if you want to cast a vote, somehow that becomes illegal. So, I mean, I'm all for, like, if you say, hey, we want to make sure that we shore up the voter intimidation laws, and so people can't malinger outside voting booths with openly carrying shotguns and rifles and I get it. That's cool. I understand that. There's probably already laws in place that kind of address that, but to just say that you can't carry a firearm where it's normally legal, and we're just going to put a generic bubble around this area because there's a voting booth, that's ludicrous, I think. But
now, please understand that this is currently before. It went before the Senate Committee on State Veterans of Military Affairs, and
it passed.
Let's see here.
It passed 3-2,
and so it did pass. So that was a subcommittee.
Yeah.
And so now it's going before the whole committee, according to that vote. So that's where it's really important right now that particularly if you're able to, if you're a citizen of a resident of Colorado, please consider contacting members of the Senate Committee on State and Veterans and Military Affairs to ask them to oppose this bill, because it's a senseless bill that simply serves to restrict Second Amendment rights further while people are exercising another constitutionally guaranteed right.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it. House Bill 22-1086, if you want the reference there. All right. I've already notified I've specifically notified my representatives and my state senator, but I should say my representative. I don't have more than one, but I've also contacted the members of that committee as well. So I encourage you to do so. Let's go to Washington now. Washington State. Last month we covered in this same podcast, meaning the legislative updates one, how they were looking at passing 3 bills. One was a magazine capacity limit bill, anything greater than 10 rounds. One was a ghost guns ban, or a personal home manufactured firearms ban, essentially, and a ban of firearms from election related places, school board and municipal meetings, which is not all that similar from what we just talked about here in Colorado, although a bit further than that. And unfortunately, all 3 of those bills were passed. Matthew, you wrote an article about this too, especially about the magazine ban. Why don't you give us the greater details on this unfortunate news out of Washington State?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We've been doing legislative updates podcasts for several of the years, and it seems like it's been, I don't know, maybe you could correct me, but 2-3 years that Washington State gun owners have just been getting like blasted, man, like the bad law after bad law. And these are 3. So the magazine ban basically puts a cap on any magazine with 10 rounds or more. That applies to even rimfire magazines. Okay, so it's not just centerfire magazines, and it applies to selling, importing, or manufacturing. So if you have magazines right now, you're good to go. If you get them in before the law goes into effect, you'll be good to go. I don't know how they're going to differentiate those from any other magazines that happen to get in there. Not sure, but yeah. So this is the 11 round bad, 10 round, or 10 round bad, 9 rounds are okay. So I'm not a big fan of it, clearly.
Yeah. It's terrible. It's sad. I'll tell you some things that I think are very unfortunate. And you included a graphic from the Washington Civil Rights Association's Facebook page
Mhm.
that explained a lot of the ramifications and the facts behind this magazine ban bill. And this is the first time it actually like really hit me personally, and I'll explain why. But it said here that under this includes an import ban, meaning you can't bring in any so-called high capacity magazines with you into the state, either as a resident or as a visitor to the state. It says no person may enter the state with a magazine greater than 10 rounds, including non-Washington LE, competitors, salespeople, or trainers. Washington residents may return with magazines they owned previously, but not new ones. And new residents cannot bring existing magazines into the state, which is crazy to me because, like, well, hold on. We grandfather the fact that current residents can keep what they already owned, but that doesn't apply to someone that moves into your stupid state. I hate to say it because I think it's a beautiful state. What hit me personally was that bit about competitors. I was just there in August at a USPSA Area 1 championship match. And I mean, at that time, this wasn't an issue. I flew in, took all my standard competitor equipment, flew in with my standard capacity magazines that I normally compete with. And the way that reads, like, that is no bueno, like, period. There's no exceptions or anything like that. And that's unfortunate. Or trainers. So if I ever wanted to go teach a class there, like, I mean, I understand this is nothing new. Like New York State or California is not all that different in this regard. If I was going to go teach in those states, I'd have to do the same thing. But this is all done under the guise of making their state safer and so-called quote saving lives end quote. And unfortunately, I don't believe it's going to have the effect that they think it will. And so, yeah, there you have it. My heart goes out to my friends and family in Washington State. And I'm sorry that you got to deal with this crap. We've had to deal with some similar things, although not quite as strict here in Colorado and other places across this country. And yeah, the ghost guns ban too. I mean, that's statewide. That's terrible. Yeah. I think because it has been since the beginning of time, pretty much in this country, where you make a gun for your own personal use, no problem. But yeah, that's those ghost guns. They're scary. We got to get those things off the streets. It's pretty interesting sometimes the images that come out of South America, where you see people get very creative in manufacturing their own firearms to, skirt the law, even though it's illegal to do so. People will, those that really care enough too, which they're out there, especially on the criminal side, they will make weapons of all kinds. It's just a fact. So you are impacting law-abiding folks primarily and reducing their ability to exercise their rights and protect themselves. And that is unfortunate. Well, should we get to the good news part of this podcast?
Yeah, let's
Matthew?
do it.
All right. We got a bunch of states here. This is kind of wild, actually. Yeah, I wish we were reading similar news out of Washington State, but unfortunately we are not. But here we go. Alabama, 22nd state to pass constitutional carry. Okay. Yesterday, this is as of March 11th, so back on, I guess, March 10th, Governor Kay Ivey. I'm quoting, by the way. This is funny because this is Matthew's article. Governor Ivey signed House Bill 272, making Alabama the first governor to sign a constitutional carry bill this year. After signing the bill, she released the following statement. I like this. This is good to hear from your state governor. Unlike states who are doing everything in their power to make it harder for law-abiding citizens, sounds like something we just talked about, Alabama is reaffirming our commitment to defending our Second Amendment rights. I have always stood up for the rights of law-abiding gun owners, and I am proud to do that again today. Boom.
Yeah, it's
So constitutional carry, law of the land now in the state of Alabama. Now, my understanding is it won't go into effect until January 1st, 2023. So that's a little ways out. And that's probably due to, I could be wrong, but a lot of times states have various, like here in Colorado, things go into effect always on July 1st of a year the law is passed. I think there's other states that have similar type provisions, or some will say it goes into effect 90 days from the passing of this law. Again, I could be wrong, but Alabama may have something where it goes into effect, at the start of the next year. But that's what it looks like here.
Good job, Governor Kay Ivey.
Yeah,
she's a strong woman, man. That's pretty. Even today, there's not a lot of governors that will stand up and, take a stance like that. So it's good for her.
Yep. Awesome stuff. Now we go to our next one here, Ohio. And so you should talk about this because this is your home state.
Yeah. So we finally got constitutional carry here. Senate Bill 215 passed. There was some question if DeWine would sign the bill. The governor DeWine would sign the bill. He waited until like the very end of the time. He had 10 days to sign it. He waited till the end and then he signed it. It'll go into effect 90 days from the signing. He signed it on the 23rd is when he signed it. So that makes Ohio the 23rd state. It's pretty standard of the mill constitutional carry bill. We do have a duty to notify in Ohio. It changed some of the language in there to say you have to notify the officer before or after he asks or after they ask. So similar to I think it's a Connecticut law where it's a requirement that the officer ask. It's not a perfect bill. There were some, like anything, it got watered down a little bit from what it originally was. There were some language in it that they wanted to have spelled out that you couldn't use the fact that you saw somebody open carrying or the fact that they had a firearm as probable cause to detain them and start, going through a search in all this stuff. So it's already, covered in case law and things like that, but they wanted it in the actual legislation that got stripped out. But yeah, it's big for Ohio because, just I think it was 2 years ago, we got rid of the crazy, our crazy self-defense law that basically said, you were guilty until proven innocent. You had to prove that you didn't, that you didn't not act in self-defense, right? So you had to prove that. But yeah, we got stand your ground. So Ohio's making some good Second Amendment movement.
Really cool to see, man.
Yeah.
Super cool. So Alabama and Ohio, 22nd and 23rd states respectively. Here's another one. Indiana Governor Holcomb signs constitutional carry bill. House Bill 1296 was signed just, I think, 2 days ago. The signing means Indiana will become the 24th state with a constitutional carry law. Bam. I mean, just like that, another one. There's a quote here from Governor Holcomb. He says, the Second Amendment has been debated for years, yet time and again, our U.S. Supreme Court has reaffirmed this important constitutional right that I fully support. This law is similar to others in that it simply removes the permanent requirement to carry concealed If a person is not prohibited to possess a firearm otherwise, they don't need a permit to carry the gun. So my understanding there is you want to get a permit, you may still do so. In fact, I'd say it's recommended even, particularly if you're going to ever travel or spend any time outside of the state, so that you can get some reciprocity. One thing it'd be good for us, I think, to research a little bit deeper at some point, Matthew, because I don't know the answers to all of this, it would be how many of these state constitutional carry laws apply universally, meaning to anybody, that any law-abiding person within their state, versus ones that may be only applicable to residents of that state. Because I think that would be good to know. I mean, the more states, obviously, that pass these more universal constitutional carry laws, I guess reciprocity starts becoming less and less of an issue, right? It gets us closer and closer to what a national level constitutional carry law would be like, which I'd love to see happen. Don't know if it ever will, but I'll tell you, the more states pass this, the more inertia or momentum that is built, to suggest that, hey, this may be something we should have nationwide. I think that's going to be a long, hard fought battle if it ever happens, but I think it's one that we should absolutely be fighting for.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like the number of states that have gone to constitutional carry over the last 2 years, I think I'm drawing a blank. I think it might be 13 or something just in the last 2 states or 2 years. I mean,
something like that.
It's crazy, right? And so you're that momentum, you see other governors even saying, or congressmen, when they're, arguing for the bill, saying, 24 other states have constitutional carry. It's not like some rogue bill, right? It's not something it's way out there. We see it. There's, people have been living it. And so the more momentum in that way is really good. But, and that's why some of these stories that we cover, they might not apply to your state, like in Washington state, but just the same people are doing the same thing. Like, look at what Washington state, look at how great they are with their magazine ban and this ban. And so we should do that. And so we have to meet that force. We have to meet that like level of, I don't want to say activism, but that level of like energy that the anti-gunners constantly put into the gun control bills. And so far, I mean, there is inertia. That is a good word to use.
Yeah. Now, a little bit different bill here, but this one out of West Virginia, and according to gunowners.org, the title of this is West Virginia Sweet Victory, the Keep, Bear, and Drive with Arms Act signed into law. So this is an interesting one. I honestly, I hadn't heard about this, and I haven't seen, I don't think, a lot of other states that have passed similar things. So a curious thing, in case folks, listeners of the podcast may not know, some of you I'm sure do know, but in many states, there's a difference between carrying a handgun, let's say, in your vehicle and a rifle. A lot of states, for whatever reason, restrict the ability to carry a loaded rifle with you. And the definition of that may vary too from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, as far as whether that's a round and chamber or not. By the way, I think carrying a rifle round and chamber is not a good idea anyway. Or you shouldn't have a loaded magazine in the gun at all, or something to that effect. So that can vary. But this sometimes an issue. People will talk about, well, the distinctness between carrying a handgun loaded, which you're carrying your defensive pistol, let's say you have a permit to do so, or you're in a constitutional carry state, no big deal, right? But maybe that pistol is more in the form of like an AR, right? And so some people will actually run into the whole thing of, well, my state, I'm going to have with me in my vehicle a short-barreled AR pistol, because I can have that and I can have a loaded mag in it or whatever, and that's legal to do by law. But if I went through the process of turning that into a properly, tax stamped short barreled rifle with an actual stock instead of, say, a brace or something, then that would prohibit me from being able to have that with me loaded in the vehicle, because now it's actually by law classified as a rifle. Anyway, so the interesting thing about this law that was passed on March 10th and signed by Governor Jim Justice, what this means is that you'll be able to have a loaded long gun in your vehicle. So boom, there you go. So whether you have a handgun with you, right? And West Virginia is one of those constitutional carry states. So basically, what the law does, it says if you're law abiding, it doesn't matter what you have with you. You could have a rifle with you. You could have a handgun with you. You could be concealing that handgun legally because constitutional carry. It doesn't matter. You can have any of that in your vehicle. It could be loaded, unloaded, doesn't matter. Frankly, I think that's how it ought to be. Now, again, for best practice sake, by golly, don't be carrying around or transporting with you your rifles, your long guns in a chambered condition. Okay. Keep in mind that a lot of those, there's a lot of long guns out there that they don't have the same level of drop safety protections that handguns do. And that's first and foremost why I'd suggest that you should not be transporting those chambered. There's probably other reasons too, but that's the big one I want to harp on right now. Okay. It's different carrying a chambered handgun in a holster on your body than it is packing around a chambered loaded rifle that's single action, that all, it has a safety, but sometimes they're not as drop safe as what we'd like them to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree, man.
Tell us about Georgia, Matthew. Some good news out of Georgia. Now, this is not passing quite the full state or getting signed yet into law, but it's moving forward, it would appear.
Yeah, so Georgia House of Georgia House of Representatives passed a 94 to 57 vote to. I'm sorry, that was the state. That was the Senate, not the House. Passed the House. It's a constitutional carry act, and so they are moving forward. I think from what I understand, the House is very close to passing the bill, and once they reconcile the two, that it will go up to the governor. And
I think you got that reversed. It is the House that passed it.
Okay, so it's the Senate.
To the Senate.
Okay, so there we go. So yeah, thank you for plugging my brain back in. So
yeah, the title of the article right there is Georgia State House passes bill.
That gives it away. I should have opened it up. So
and this, by the way, this is reported on thehill.com.
Yeah, so the House passed it. Senate's going to have to pass their bill. They'll reconcile the bill. I believe Governor Kemp has already said that he intends, if the bill comes, that he'll sign it. And so that would be a huge win too, right? And that'd be another state to add to the list. So very cool coming out of Georgia.
Yes. And I have an update on this actually that is just as of yesterday. Senate Judiciary hearing House's constitutional carry bill. So, and it just says that they're going to hear it this week. So that's really where we're at. Just so folks know. So the House, the Georgia House has passed this constitutional carry bill. Governor Kemp has expressed support for the bill. It's now before the Judiciary Committee of the Senate, who will hear that bill this week. You have time, folks, to contact your state senators, in particularly those on the Judiciary Committee of the Senate, to let them know you support House Bill 1358, which is the constitutional carry bill. All right. So provided it moves through the the Senate Judiciary Committee, it could then go before a vote in the Senate. And then finally, assuming it is passed and or there's not any reconciliation to be done with the House, then it could be signed by Governor Kemp into law. And Georgia could very well become the 25th constitutional carry state. That'd be remarkable. Half of the states of the Union with constitutional carry bills or laws on the books.
Yeah.
Our final news story is out of Nebraska. Nebraska concealed carry permit changes bill. That's kind of a confusing way that's worded. It's the Nebraska concealed carry permit changes bill. Clears its first unicameral hurdle. So, and by that, it's referring to the state Senate, actually. So here's the thing. So Nebraska, specifically a Nebraska senator by the name of, where is he? Oh, I had his info just a moment ago, and it's gone. I must have closed that tab. What's that?
Are you? You're talking about the governor,
the sponsor of this bill. I forgot his name. Doesn't matter. We have a state senator that sponsored this bill. Here's what they want to do is actually make Nebraska into a permitless carry state, a constitutional carry state, and also remove the fee and safety training requirement from the permit process. So again, permits still would be available to obtain. It'd be optional, assuming that you had constitutional carry there, but then it would also remove the fee and safety training requirement. So you basically just walk in, I guess, and get a permit. Maybe they do a background check. I don't know, but there'd be no fee for it. That's cool. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's the bill. Now, a lot of changes on this have been debated. And this is as of the last report we have is almost 2 weeks ago, by the way. And I checked, there's no other updates on this, but this was stuck in committee, and actually the state Senate voted to pull it out of committee, and so they could debate this and potentially vote on it before the full Senate in Nebraska. And in fact, that bill was passed by the state Senate. So approved 35-9, actually, which is pretty, that's pretty, what's the word? Like that's a big win, right?
Yeah,
that's a big margin there. So that bill has moved forward. Again, this would make Nebraska a constitutional carry state and remove the fee and safety training requirement. It's got to go before the House still, and there's going to be quite a process there. And I don't know what the stance of State Governor Pete Ricketts is. It does say 2 more votes are going to be required to get this through. So we'll have to follow this one closely. Hopefully have an update for you next time we do a legislative updates episode. But apparently things got pretty heated as they debated the merits and possible amendments to and changes to this bill, as State Senator Patty Brooks had to jump up and scold like a mom to the rest of the Senate that, hey, we need to get back into a decorum here. Mm-hmm. Said apparently we need to have some momsplaining in here instead of the mansplaining that continues to go on. As a mom, I would have sent everybody to their rooms until everybody could get back together and be kinder to one another. This is ridiculous. Where are the adults in this room? I got a good chuckle out of reading that quote from her. I don't even know what side of the issue she's on, but I still think that's humorous.
Yeah.
But it got quite heated. And again, still got to go through some processes here and of course, an approval by the House to get before the governor. Please consider contacting your representatives, your senators, and also the governor's office. Let them know your support for this bill number 773.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll add in Connor on Facebook. He asked a good question. He said it's hard to be an advocate for the Second Amendment nowadays with how much slack you get from social media and people. What's the best way a concealed carry holder can advocate for their right? And I think you're 100% right. It is it is difficult. But I find that if you get involved with a local gun rights organization that's on the ground, that's in the chambers, that's hounding these lawmakers and in contacting these, you contacting the lawmakers and saying, look, you represent me. I'm a gun owner. This is, a constitutional issue. Vote yes or vote no or whatever, because these guys and ladies, if they're not pressured, they will go with the flow. Like a Republican, just as much of as a Democrat, if they sense the wind, hey, I'm not going to take a hit for checking this box for a anti-gun legislation, and maybe it will get me more moderate votes. I'll go with the flow, unless they're held to their feet to the fire and say, I know when we're getting this constitutional carry bill passed, we had the governor's phone mailbox blown up, and we were calling, we were emailing, messaging all our representatives. I mean, constantly. So that does. I mean, they respond to it, and so just and when you have conversations, just be logical and don't get involved in petty arguments with people who don't really want to talk. It's pointless.
Yep, I agree. That's good. Excellent advice there, Matthew. And I'd say that one of the simplest things to do to get involved and actually start having somewhat of an impact legislatively is to get involved right at the local level, like you said, and not just like local gun rights organizations, but even just go, like if you're a state that has caucusing as part of the legislative, or really the voting process, if you will, get involved with your local caucus. Okay, go to the caucus meetings. Okay, actually step up to the plate and volunteer to be a caucus representative at whether it's the county or state or other levels, where you're actually, now you're actually getting involved. You can advance platforms before your party and go to state and county events where you can actually have an influence on those people that actually get on the ballot. Okay, because that's super important. And you want people getting on the ballots that are going to carry forth your platforms too, and the things you care most about. So there's lots of ways we can go about this. So get involved, and it always starts local first. And of course, we don't want to lose sight of doing things like contacting those at the state or even national level. It's got to be a holistic approach where we're covering all our bases, but specifically we should absolutely be involved on the local level. That's where we're going to have the greatest effect.
Mm-hmm.
So
definitely
good stuff. Well, that brings us to a conclusion of today's stories. We do, before we wrap this up, need to announce our weekly giveaway winner. And why don't you tell folks, Matthew, what are we giving away today? And then also tease for us what our prize is for next week.
Yeah, so we're giving away a Draw Like a Pro course. It's a fantastic course, and it'll get you your draw times, lower, quicker, more accurate first shots and everything. It's a fantastic course. And the winner for that is Rob. So make sure you check your email, Rob. And next week, we're going to be giving away an SSP Eyewear $50 gift card. And that's a fantastic value with their products. You can get great, eye pro that's very good for $50, and you won't be disappointed. Make sure that you sign up. You go to concealcarry.com/podcast prize, and each week you got to sign up for that. So just go there. You can share it and get an extra vote in there, or chance to win. And Yeah. And we normally have, a pretty good chance of winning. So
Yeah. Awesome. Congrats, Rob, on winning the Draw Like a Pro video course. Folks, again, a reminder, please consider signing up each week if you want to have a chance at winning in the giveaway. Go to concealedcarry.com/podcast prize. So with that, we're going to wrap this up. A little bit of a heads up that we're going to record, I believe, our second episode of the week tomorrow instead of later today. Part of that's to give my voice a rest after I'm just barely kind of recovering here from my recent sickness. So we'll see you back here at a later time, hopefully tomorrow. And until next time, a reminder to train right, train often, and train safe so you can fight hard, fight fast, and fight true. Take care.